Welcome back to ShePropTalk. I'm Beverly, your host, and today I have Angela from Fancy Fairy Wings and Things. Thank you so much for being here and spending time with us today. We're going to be talking about wings and what you do and all about everything that you have been doing over the last almost a decade, right? You've been making wings for quite a while.
It's actually probably been 17 years, I think, by now.
Wow. I don't know where I got my dates from. Sorry.
Well, I was previously made them together with my ex-husband when we owned a business together. So that makes it like the dates are sort of accurate. And they were in a different incarnation before, and they were all wire-based.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the way they are now, it might be more accurate, closer to a decade, I think, actually.
Okay. That's amazing. Well, I'm so impressed with your work because I see it everywhere, not just cosplayers wearing your wings, but I see celebrities wearing your wings. I see them incorporated into giant fashion shows like Victoria's Secret, and all over the place. So that is just amazing. So I'm really excited to talk about your work and hopefully some folks out there that are thinking about making their wings, we can help them towards the tools that they need to make their own set of wings or to get their own set of wings. So let's start by talking a little bit about your origin story. I know you just mentioned that you have been making for 17, but doing the business for about a decade. But tell me about your inspiration. What is it about fairy wings that you love? And you tell me a little bit about that.
I think there were a couple movies that definitely really grabbed my attention and made me more interested in fairies. And no big surprise is Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. I just remembered the little fairies that in Labyrinth that Hoggle was spraying with the poison because they bite. and the one little fairy drops to the ground, and you can see her wings were definitely practical effects. And they looked like they were this sort of iridescent, but they were more, they looked more like bug-like, like dragonfly-like, less like a butterfly. It was more this ethereal, transparent look that I usually didn't see fairy wings portrayed like. And the style of the wings in Tiaras' wings in Dark Crystal as well. Like, both of those had a really big influence in the vision that I had in my head of what fairy wings must look like. And as well as like all of Brian Froud's work, and then like Amy Brown also made, fairies like kind of a big thing again too. And but what really kicked it off for me was I was dog sitting, and it was I think it was a Portuguese water dog, and they have the really curly fur. And she came in one day, and she had these two tiny little wings stuck in her fur, and they might have even just been fly wings, but there was no body attached to it. It was just the wings by themselves. And without like this fly on there, I was like, these look like it could have come from a fairy. And I really loved especially the iridescence of it. I mean, I'll show me anything that changes colors and I will go crazy for that. So that's kind of where the idea started for what I thought I wanted wings to look like. And it was something that I couldn't find anywhere. And I had a fairy princess party company. I was doing that on the weekends. while I did graphic design during the week. And I decided to try and make a set for myself and make a fairy character. And I mean, if you saw the first, I'll send you the old pictures. I would love to see that. My costume was so,
you know what?
janky.
Everyone starts somewhere, right? I mean, everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Everyone starts somewhere. I would love to see that if you are willing to share.
Yes, this is true. This is true. I will. Yeah, those were made with floral wire, like really thin floral wire too, but I had a much thicker one around the outside edge. The shape of them though was like very round, like bubble-like, and I had an inside for the inner veins. I think there was even just transparent like scotch tape in there to hold them down. But that
sounds like a mock-up. Yeah,
it was, but I used it for, my fairy character. But back then, everybody was impressed because nobody was really making wings that way yet, and they were obviously not store-bought. And even the tape, you don't really see it because it is transparent. And then, I'm still using the same iron-on vinyl, like all through those years. Like that has been sort of the little secret ingredient, I feel like, for putting them together more easily and smoothly. And they were attached very, I think I remember there was a wooden block, it was, a shallow one, but it was a wooden piece that I drilled holes in the top of and then put the wire in there, and the harness was just kind of this, it was a bulky thing. But I ended up having a dream one night about fairies, about watching a play with fairies in it. And in the dream, I specifically remembered that the edges were open and like very kind of feathery and like ragged looking, more worn, kind of like a lot of the fairy wings in like Brian Froud's art. So I decided, well, maybe I'll try some like that, with that kind of look. And I did, and I really liked that version. Learned a few other tricks, started using some better wire. And my first sets of wings went to a friend of mine, it was a couple, and they used to own a fairy photography studio in Benicia, California, called Avalon Arts.
That sounds fabulous. A fairy photography studio. That sounds amazing.
Yes. And there weren't a lot of people doing this back then. Like, this was kind of a new thing. And I had walked into their studio with my ex during a Christmas, like, First Street celebration thing, and walked in and just was, wow, what is this? And we just instantly hit it off. And, I got to talking about my party business and the fairy costume. I was like, at that time, like just working on the new versions of the wings. And, they offered to take photos of me when I was done with it in exchange for some wings. Because they also wanted to advertise more to adults, to do fairy portraits. And, of course I said yes.
That sounds great. Nice trade-off.
Yes. And so I decided to make another set, and I thought, well, maybe I'll put a set on eBay and just see how that goes. And they sold, and then, tried another pair, and they sold, and it just kind of snowballed from there. For a while, the wings you could only access them by going through the co-owned company with my ex, which is a Halloween company with lots of very scary monsters. Yeah, there were a lot of transitions. Yeah, I finally had to get
Yeah.
my own side. It was like, I don't want to go through all the scary zombies to get through these
Yeah,
beautiful wings.
yeah. I love your site, by the way. It's beautiful. Listeners, it is
Oh, thank you.
fancyfairy.com. Please go check it out. We'll talk about it again as well. But continue on with the story. I love this. I love this origin story. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I even tried, while I was still with my ex and with that company, we even tried having the wings made overseas and selling them wholesale to retailers, and I just was not happy with that. It was very difficult, more difficult than I would have ever thought, to make a product like that without huge minimums of like 10,000 pieces. Like, we couldn't do that.
Crazy.
So
Wow.
we had to do something a lot smaller, and so they ended up being put together with I think it was like steel metal strips.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And wire that it's like soldered together, but just not.
And was that something that
the quality was just?
And that was that a sample that a company that you were looking into making these for you? Was that a sample that you got back from them? Like, here, this is how we could do it, or
it was more like the sample looked cool, and then the actual product was not as cool.
Gotcha.
When it came, there were a lot of rejects. In the end, I just decided, I think this is just a product that is not cut out for mass production in that way. So yeah, do not want to deal with it again.
I don't blame you.
A lot of overhead, a lot of expense. Yeah. But I had at that time just figured out Waterjet cutting, how that I could get the frames cut via Waterjet, because I was getting enough orders to where I needed a way to make them consistently, so that they look the same, and also without killing my hands, and without the length of time that it was taking me to finish each one. So it was probably a lot in part due to my obsessiveness with ideas. If I get one,
I can relate to that.
It's hard to let go.
Totally
yeah. There were many nights I was just up, just late on the internet, just searching, and maybe if I try this other search term, maybe I'll find this thing that I'm looking for. And I went through a couple of different vendors and ended up on this one in Napa that I still work with, and is great. And Waterjet ended up being the way to go, because it turns out that LaserJet does not like aluminum.
I didn't know that.
And it likes to remelt, and it like does weird things. I tried it once. I actually tried it once because there's a company that was actually a customer of my boyfriend's job where he works, and like, oh, she should give us a try, and let's try this, and I did, and it was a nightmare because the pieces could not be completely cut. I had to take them home and punch them out of the sheet.
And then I'm sure that edges
there were little connections
at that point too. Is that
the edges actually were clean. I mean, except for those tiny little spots where they were tacked together. And that wasn't a big deal. The rest of it was clean, which is the clean edge is what I was trying to get, because the sanding is just my most hated part of the whole process.
Me too.
Because Waterjet does leave that burr. Yeah.
Sorry, Eric.
It's horrible, especially when it's hot.
Right. Oh, sure.
So, if I had made them possibly with closed edges, with metal going all the way around, it might have helped it a little bit. And also, if the designs were not as detailed, But I really was, I didn't want to have to change the design in order to use that method. So it just, that was the only time I tried it, and never again, unless it really changes.
So how many designs do you have now? Or was that just one design that you were trying that process for?
There's over 30, probably. I should know this. This is one of the things I should know. But, and I think I did take a count once, and the number is escaping me now.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I would say at least 30 different designs that are actually original and not just like a nature design.
All right. And do you have a favorite design of yours? I know that's always hard.
Oh, it is really hard to pick a favorite. But I really probably the ones that have little tendrily parts.
Like the one behind you on
like
your
the
wall?
goblin. Okay. Yeah, the Datura ones. Those are one of my favorites, I think I can safely say. It may also change depending on the day. Sure. But the Elvinas I'm also a fan of, because they have this curly little thing. The ones that I licensed from Amy Brown, I also love because it's a beautiful design, but they are also one of the most difficult ones to work with, especially with the sanding, because there are lots of curls that love to get snagged on the sandpaper. And
you need a sanding minion. I think that there's a full-time job in there for people, a sanding minion.
Sanding minion, yes.
I'm gonna have to throw up some photos of the things that we're talking about. So if you're listening to this episode, and again, I always say this with every episode because now we're also doing the video portion of this, please come over and watch the video portion so you can see these gorgeous, beautiful, crazy, insanely phenomenal wings that Angela makes by hand, apparently. Yes, that is crazy. So is this your full-time thing, or is this a hobby, weekend, spare time? If you don't mind me asking.
Oh, it's definitely my full-time thing. It's for a while there I was doing both. I was still doing the parties, and I was also doing the wings. But somewhere along the way, the wings just started swallowing up everything else. And you know, I'm in my mid-40s now, and people are gonna ask for the 20-year-old Snow White. So yeah, I was also missing my weekends and sleeping in and doing stuff with my boyfriend. So yeah, kind of now I'm on more of kind of on a Monday through Friday, but really I feel like my mind is never really off of work.
Can we talk about your website and some of the other things that's on your website? You have things that aren't things you wear on your back. You've got wing crowns and things that you've done in the past. I don't know if you will do those again. But oh my God, they are so beautiful. Here I am. I'm like falling over your work.
Thank you. I do plan on making more crowns. That's actually one of the main things that I have been doing all of my experimenting with, is making little tiny versions of the wings, and trying to figure out all the different ways that I could possibly do that, which way is faster, so that I could bring the price down, and but also, of course, which way can I make them so it has all the components of all the different things that I want in them, and for some of it using the maker for it. There's been a few different ways that I've made the mini wings. The way that I made them in the crowns that are on the site is those are actually, the frames in those are also made of really thin metal. and they're made of brass or nickel silver. And those I actually make with, and it's another thing that I can't do here because I'm working out of a second bedroom in a condo, and this involves chemicals, but it's basically very old school photo etching.
Oh.
It will cut through certain thicknesses of metal. If it's thin enough, it will actually cut right through. And I discovered that it's actually more practical to do it that way for these really small little things than it is to use a laser cutter. I looked everywhere, and I got quotes, and I got a couple samples for laser cutting because I thought I heard that fiber lasers would be the thing, and that's what I needed to do if I wanted little tiny things with lots of detail. But in the end, the pricing was just, it was pretty pricey because it is based on time, and it can only do, unlike Waterjet, you can actually stack layers of the metal sheets. Yeah, but with laser, you can't do that. It's, unless maybe materials like paper, but with metal, you can't. It has to just be that one layer. So everything is just cut one by one. And the more detail, the more time. And that doesn't really lessen. I mean, it does a little bit when it's smaller, but not by as much as you would think it would. So I discovered chemical etching was actually the way to go, and I could get the detail I wanted and not have it crazy expensive or take a crazy amount of time. And that is also how I am going to be cutting the crown portions. So ones that I have on my blog, the ones that I just sold recently, those are using some already made pieces. For the crown part, that metal crown part, those are it actually is a whole story that I learned some things. So those are designed by Alessio Benetti from Italy. And so all of the beautiful lacy looking like masquerade masks and some of the tiara, it's mostly masks that we see here, especially in the States anyway, are designed by him. But I noticed that his name was not attached to the products when they were sold here, like if you find them on Amazon or AliExpress or wherever they're being sold. And I always kind of was amazed at, like, wow, these are pretty affordable for what they are. I would have thought they'd cost a lot more than this. And I had bought like 3 of them, and I thought, it'd be fun to make a few using these, just to get an idea of what it's like, and I needed to get past my procrastination and my creative block.
Sounds like a great way to do
I
that,
thought,
though.
I'm just...
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. I was like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm just going to decorate these. It'll be an easy and quick.
Yeah. Famous last words.
And they took a lot longer than I had planned on them taking. The pieces that I worked with are great. But what I learned from Alessio Benetti after I created them, because I wanted to show him and say, I hope you like them. I decorated your crowns, and I found out that the ones that are sold here in the States are actually counterfeit versions of his pieces.
Oh, no.
And that he can't do anything about it from Italy.
Wow.
So I was like, oh my God, that's, how I feel about copyright infringement.
Absolutely. Oh, that is a bummer. Jeez.
So, but he's been dealing with it for long enough that he basically said, you might as well just buy them from there because it's more affordable. It's really expensive to buy from here because the customs fees and, I was like, thank you. And I appreciate that, nice, but I would rather not do that. If I do buy them again, I'm going to get them from you. And I wanted to make sure and credit him, as
the designer.
It's the bulk of the prettiness of the design. And I'm not going to pretend that I did that part. But I still, the whole goal anyway is I want to make some originals, and that should make it easier for me as well to produce crowns that are built in the way that will make it easier for me to attach little wings to, and to do all the things that I need to do. I can just put it all in there from scratch.
Gorgeous. Well, I can't wait for that email alert. So I would love to see your next creations. I'm sure they'll be just absolutely beautiful, like everything else that you do. But now maybe we can start talking about some wings. And so now I want to say that you have a Patreon. And so we're not going to be giving away your biggest secrets here on this podcast because I want everyone to support Angela's work, and because she works very hard. As you can tell, if you have gotten this far in the podcast, she spends an enormous amount of time researching and testing and all of that. So definitely plugging your Patreon. And is that the same Fancy Fairy on Patreon?
It is. I believe it's Fairy Angela is the username, and it's spelled the same as my my email address with the FAERY. I'm pretty sure, but we'll double check that.
And I'll put some links
because I spell fairy different a couple times, depending on which thing it is.
Well, folks, please go check out her Patreon. I'll put a link in the show notes for that, so you can go check things out if you want to get the inside scoop. So let's talk about making fairy wings. What would you like to talk about? I mean, I don't want to give away any of your close held secrets, but what can we talk about, and what are you willing to share? Because I know that on your website you do have some information on there that someone can go to and check out a little bit of and you have tutorials, you have a YouTube channel with a lot of this information on it as well. So
well, I have pretty much spilled a lot of the secrets to how I make my wings anyway. And it's something I had been thinking about doing for a while, is making a tutorial. And I was nervous about doing so for a while because I didn't know initially if, was it just the technique that people are here for? Is it the actual designs? You know what I mean? Like, I had that fear that, oh no, if someone figures it out, then what if I'm out of business? If everybody can go make their own?
Yeah, that's a valid fear for sure.
And maybe, if in very early stages, it makes more sense to be more protective, until you get more of a foothold. But I mean, after a while, it didn't seem to make sense to hold on to that anymore, especially because the availability of my wings was not what it used to be, and I was making less of them. And it didn't seem fair to also withhold, all the information on how people can make their own. And I also didn't want it to be a thing that, you could only have wings like this if you make a ton of money. I didn't want that to be the thing. I didn't want to be that inaccessible. Because that had been an important thing to me too. And since 2016, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
yeah.
I wanted to be fair in how I run this business, which I was starting to feel more like, am I a business or am I an artist? Because I really don't have a desire to become a big corporation. I really don't like being a boss. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I, you know, with stopping taking orders, I kind of pulled back in a lot of ways, and I'm not making as much money. But I feel like I'm more in line with what it is I want to really be doing.
Sure.
Which for me, in a large part, is just continuing to be creative and discovering how can I make this, but make it better, or how can I, you know, make this other thing that's probably still going to be related to fairies, but you know, I wanted to expand what I can offer without having to deal with the headaches of becoming a business. So yeah, I thought that finally making the tutorial and focusing on my Patreon again, that maybe I could have the best of both worlds, and I could still focus on making the things that I want and still be able to be creative and to experiment.
Yeah.
Without leaving people completely high and dry.
Yeah.
I just need to do more of it and make more content and record more stuff.
That takes a long time too.
It does. Yeah. It's very new to me, and it's amazing how much time can go into simply just shortening, you know, an hour of footage into 3 or 4 minutes.
What do you have right now on your website or on your YouTube that we can go to check out what you might have currently as far as the tutorial goes?
Well, I have the main how to make iridescent fairy wings tutorial.
Awesome. Yeah, remember when this came out? It was really awesome to see this video just taking over the interwebs. So tell me about the video. What are you doing in the video? What kind of wings are you making in the video?
Well, with these, I decided they're not made with the metal frame, because if you were to go right now to the same place that I use to make one set of wings, it would cost more than it would to just buy a set from me. Okay. Because the reason I'm able to do it is because I'll do it in batches. So I thought, well, I will make them with a really thick poster board for the inner vein structure. And then the outer, there's 2 outer veins, one on top and one on bottom of each wing panel, that's thicker, and that would provide the rigidity. Okay. And I used the maker for cutting the inner, for the poster board for the inner vein structure. And I figured that would, you know, it's a lot easier on your hands to have it cut that way.
Oh, for sure.
And so I provided the file that people could use if they didn't have a design of their own. It's a butterfly wing file from nature, so it's not something I am attached to or that I own. And so after, you know, basically it's cut that poster board. You know, people can use an X-Acto knife if they don't have a maker or a what's the other one? The Air.
Explore Air 2.
Yes.
Or a Cameo, I'm guessing, you know, the other cutter that
right.
I have never used, but I can imagine it's pretty much the same.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they could just use the same SVG file. Yeah. And if they don't have that, an X-Acto knife, and do it old school. And then after that, it's attaching the upper and lower wires with some vinyl tape or floral tape, and then it's rolling out the iridescent film and placing the panel, the naked poster board and wire panel on top of that. And I'm sorry, I got it backwards in my own tutorial. Okay, no,
that's okay.
No, first it's laying down the vinyl. It's the iron-on vinyl.
Okay.
And then
is this the
laying down.
Is this the iridescent layer that you see through?
The vinyl, the iron-on vinyl is actually the clear layer.
Okay. Okay.
So that is on the bottom. That's on the table face up, and then the naked panel will stick to that, and then the iridescent film can be rolled over, and then smooth down, and then all heated up, and then cut out with. I like to use a heat tool. It's pretty much a soldering iron. It might take a couple tries for someone to really get it. So I suggest practicing, maybe cutting on some scraps, because it does feel weird cutting with that. So might take a couple tries to get used to. But yeah, and you could use scissors if you don't want to even bother with the heat tool, but the heat tool gives a nice little seal to the edges. And after that, it's just attaching all the panels with, I usually use vinyl tape, attaching them to a U-shaped brace that's just made with a thicker wire.
Okay.
So it's just like an open rectangle. So the opening is on top.
Okay.
And attaching all the panels to that. And that's about it. It's mostly just can be sweaty and tedious.
I feel like that's my middle name sometimes. Sweaty and tedious.
Oh. Hello, I'm sweaty and tedious.
Yeah. Worst band name ever. So yeah, it sounds like it is attention to detail is important, and being patient and getting the layers correct, and practicing with these new materials and different cutting techniques, because it's not like you're using EVA foam, which a lot of us are really used to using at this point, or even thermoplastics. It sounds like a completely different kind of technique. So I am really inspired. I really want to make something now. I'm gonna have to go check out your
I want to see what you would make. No, I've been curious to try with either warbler or zebra. And I don't know how that would hold up as a wing frame, as a vane structure, just because of the moldable nature of it when it gets hot, because you'd have to heat it up after everything. After the vinyl is put on, it has to be heated, and I don't know if that would end up making weird.
Yeah.
If it would smush it, when you have to smooth everything down, or what.
Right.
But I'd be curious to see. I wonder if someone's tried it. I want to see what it turned out like.
Yeah. Yeah. Listeners, has anyone tried this? Please contact Angela.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to go to her YouTube channel and check out the tutorial there. Also, your website, fancyfairy.com, your Patreon, which is, and I was just there, but you can get to it from her website.
Yes, there's a link.
There's a link.
There's a link.
Where else can we find you online, since now we're talking about your online presence?
Well, let's see. The most active, beyond my website and Patreon, and then there's YouTube, Instagram, Fancy Fairy Angela. And that's probably, I would say, I think it's my largest audience. Well, not in numbers technically. Facebook, I have more followers, but horrible reach. Like we probably all do.
Facebook is super weird. Well, I love your Instagram account because you also post pictures of people, other like models and photo shoots, and where your wings have wound up and what other people have incorporated those into their own projects and their photo shoots, and it's just glorious and beautiful. And I love sifting through your Instagram account. It's just awesome. Very inspiring too. I don't have a fairy costume, but I always want one after I look through your work.
Oh, you have to be a fairy. That's the nice thing. We don't have to be a certain character. Just
it could be like an evil,
our
evil
own kind of fairy.
Design
there you
character. Go. I like it. Probably start with small wings though, just to try it out. But I'll have to come to you if I need any help, for sure.
Yes.
Well, great. It's been super awesome talking to you. Thank you.
It has been super awesome talking to you too. I don't do these kinds of things often, so I always feel so awkward. But this is great.
Yeah. Well, listeners and watchers, please go support Angela. And if you are a member of SheProp, you might see her in the group. But please definitely go support her work and tell all of your friends because she's phenomenal. And that's it. That's I think all the time we have. I could sit here like making googly eyes at you all day long because you're so amazing. But all right, enough of that. All of these listeners are gonna barf pretty soon if I don't stop doing that. So. Okay. Well, thanks again, Angela, for joining me on this episode of ShePropTalk. And we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Angela. Bye.